Peace be with you. Welcome to the Institute of All Intelligent Life. Today is the 13th of October, 2016, and I'm Alan Kiesler, and our class today is going to be about my meeting yesterday with Michael Salla and the program. He had a little program in a friend's house, and fortunately, my wife and I got there about 20 minutes early. It was about an hour drive, so we left early because we didn't know what traffic would be like, so we were there almost half an hour, 20 minutes early, and hardly anybody was there. So Michael Salla and his wife and my wife and I got to sit and talk for a while before anybody else came, which was very nice. And then we had dinner together, and then he gave a presentation, and after the presentation I was able to talk with him again, so it was a very wonderful opportunity to meet a very important person in the field of extraterrestrial contact and exopolitics. He has an Exopolitics Institute, which is also teaching courses, and this book, which I'm going to have to reverse the camera so you can see this. Okay, so this is his book, Insiders Reveal Secret Space Programs and Extraterrestrial Alliances. Michael E. Salla, Ph.D. He was a professor of politics, international politics, before. He moved into this field of exopolitics, and he signed my book here. He lives in Hawaii now. He's from Australia. Mahalo is a Hawaiian word, and so he's just thanking me for my truth-telling. And in fact, he was very appreciative that I'm teaching this class. He has traveled all over the world teaching exopolitics, and he was very happy to hear that many Pakistanis are also getting this information, because he told me he didn't know of anybody in Pakistan who was really into exopolitics, although he said there are extraterrestrial bases in the Himalayas. So he, this part of the world, he said there should be a lot of information about extraterrestrials. So he was happy that I'm teaching this course. So there were several very, very interesting points in our discussions. One interesting thing to me, because I didn't know, was about how he himself became interested in exopolitics. He wasn't really a believer particularly, and he was just a professor. He taught at some universities in Australia and then in the United States. He was in Washington, D.C., teaching at American University and George Washington University, I believe. I don't remember all the details now exactly where he was teaching. And then he saw the Disclosure Project video about the press conference in the press club, National Press Club in Washington, D.C. in 2001, which I also strongly recommend you watch. You can find it on the internet, disclosureproject.org, if you haven't seen it already. It's a long video of almost 24 witnesses, many of whom might be called whistleblowers, government officials who were in intelligence often, as well as people in the Federal Aviation Agency, people who had seen UFOs, and people who had handled UFOs, who had gone to the crash sites and had seen the bodies of the extraterrestrials who had died in the crashes. Some of them, I think, maybe had seen live extraterrestrials also. So that press conference, that presentation in the press club in Washington, D.C. in 2001 was a very, very important event in the history of people finding out about extraterrestrial existence. Of course, I was aware of it before that, but Michael Salla said he really wasn't very. But after that, he began investigating extraterrestrial life, and he became convinced. And he said his colleagues in the university, in the modern academia, modern educational setup, is really, controlled by powers that be, as powers that were, I like to say, by the Illuminati or the Cabal, and they really discourage anyone from getting involved. So any academician, any professor in any university who starts teaching about this, he will lose his job or something. He said he didn't have threats on his life, as some people have gotten who are in this field, but he could not keep his job in academia. He had to choose because they don't allow this sort of thing. So he began his own work in, of course, his own institution, now Exopolitics Institute. He has, similar to what I've done. If I've left academia, they would not appreciate or even allow this sort of teaching as I'm doing now. So he also had the same experience. But I'm just trying to remember some of the most key points of our discussion. Perhaps the most important one, because most of when he gave his presentation, I really was familiar with almost everything that he talked about. But one thing that we talked about as we were having dinner, and both before and after the program, I asked him, what does he think the future? Because we were talking about how things have changed so much in the last couple of years. He said in 2013 he wrote 2 books. In fact, I also got one of them last night, which I had heard about before, but I hadn't read, I hadn't seen, which is, oops, again I'm going to have to reverse this so you can see it better. Galactic Diplomacy, Getting to Yes with E.T. by Michael Salla. So this book he wrote in 2013, and he said that after he wrote this book, and he had written other books too, he felt like pretty much everything is there. He's covered the field. And he said he had no idea at all what was going to happen. And since the 3 years since then, he said, it's been a total revolution in his understanding. All these details have come out, which I've been talking about in this course, and which of course he's written about in his recent book, which, the ones I showed you a little while ago, about insiders reveal secret space programs and extraterrestrial alliances. So this whole information about secret alliances with extraterrestrials and the secret space program, the colony on Mars, the vast, huge colony on Mars, and colonies on moons in our solar system, and bases even in other star systems that human beings have done with extraterrestrial help, of course. He said this was just, it was just coming out. He said he would only heard about, and he interviewed some people, but he couldn't really believe hardly what they were saying could really be true, that they had been on Mars and they had served for 20 years, and then after 20 years they were age reversed and put back on Earth back at the time when they had left. He said this was too mind-boggling for him, but then there was confirmation of it. Other people came forward. I think the first one was Randy Kramer. At that time he was going the pseudonym Captain K, and Michael Salla interviewed him, and this story of going to Mars and being in this secret space program, even for him, a great researcher of extrapolitics, it was a little difficult. But he said then other people came forward, and now just within the past year, only less than the past year, Michael said that William Tompkins has come out, and a lot of his presentation was about William Tompkins and the documentation that he has provided, because Corey Goode and Randy Kramer, Michael Relf, other people who have been in the secret space programs could not really provide documentation. But he said that now William Tompkins has been able to provide a lot of documentation because, which I didn't know this, the Navy, he said, has now made the decision that they are going to do everything they can to promote disclosure. So William Tompkins was working in the Navy. He was working in aerospace companies also for many years, designing spacecraft. So his officers, his superiors, you might say, within the Navy organization, have told him to please go public and report all you can. So he's written that book, Selected by Extraterrestrials, in which he's provided a lot of proof that he really was doing what he said he was doing, which the other whistleblowers in the Mars program were not able to do because it just wasn't available, the documentation. So it was really, really positive, the program and the meetings yesterday, that the future looks good. So I asked him about the future, and his reply was very interesting to me. I actually had not thought about this very much, but he said he anticipates that we, meaning humanity, I guess, he said that we will shift into a new timeline, shift to a different timeline, which I've, of course, heard about. In fact, I wrote, if you haven't seen it on my website, allintelligentlife.com, I have an article there about different timelines in which I say that eventually, because many different timelines are created, when people do time travel and do something different, that creates a new timeline. People ask, how can you go into the past? You might change something and then the whole of history will change. But actually, history doesn't change. What happens is you create a new timeline. So different groups, both extraterrestrial and others, have created many different timelines. In fact, our secret space programs in the United States secret government had created a number of different timelines as they were trying to make things better for them. And of course it doesn't really work because the different timelines may conflict with each other and it ends up causing problems, and it doesn't really change things. But he said that he does believe that humanity is heading for a new timeline, a very positive timeline, in which our future will be like a Star Wars type, a Star Trek type civilization, where people are able to travel freely throughout the galaxy or even to other galaxies, and there's so much advanced technology, robots and everything at our disposal. Then he said something which I had never heard before. He said, just like the Mayan civilization. So the Mayan civilization in South America, Central and South America, was a puzzle, you might say, to historians and anthropologists as to what happened to it, because it was a huge, very advanced civilization, and then it disappeared. It disappeared quite suddenly. So he said that what happened there, which I had never heard this before, he said that the Mayan civilization shifted to a different timeline. So they kind of, I guess you could say, disappeared from this timeline. So I asked him, is it like ascension? So this is the main thing I want to talk about today when I finish talking about my meeting with Michael Salla. If I finish it up, I'll talk a little about ascension and how it's a very, very important part of even the structure of our universe, at least. I don't know if other universes have the same structure, but this periodic ascension where an entire planet transforms, changes, you could say changes to a different timeline or changes to a different density or dimension of existence. So he said that the Mayan culture, the whole culture, as a whole, the people, the civilization, they shifted. Their consciousness came to a higher level and they were able to transform the entire society and shift it to a new timeline. So he hopes that's what's going to happen to our society also, to our world society. So let me talk a little bit about ascension and how the whole universe goes through cycles. I had mentioned this earlier, the 25,000 year cycle, or it's about 25,000, more than 25,000, but less than 26,000 years. There's a cyclical period, which we know in Western astronomy as the precession of the equinoxes, which they say is due to the Earth wobbling on its, as it rotates, it wobbles over a long, long period of time, which is kind of hard to imagine, a wobble over, tens of thousands of years. But actually it's not because the Earth is wobbling, but it's because the Earth has a companion star, which is not visible. It's what we call a red dwarf, I think. It's infrared light it gives off, so we can't actually see it. But it does have a presence, and our sun and that other star rotate around each other. And that rotation is what causes this cycle of the precession of the equinoxes of about 25,000 years. So an ascension is the phenomenon which can happen to individuals, and does happen to individuals, but also happens to entire planets. And it is a transformation from one level of awareness, one level of consciousness, to a higher level of consciousness. And my understanding is that this is what is talked about in Holy Scriptures about the Day of Judgment, or the Day of Resurrection. It is an ascension of the whole planet, or an opportunity at least for the whole planet to ascend to a higher level of awareness. And everyone is judged by their activities if they're going to be able to ascend to a higher level or not. So this is a universal phenomenon. Every planet has these periodic opportunities to make a shift to a higher level of consciousness. And it generally happens. It generally happens on schedule, that people on a certain planet, gradually they come to a higher level, and then they suddenly make a shift at the assigned time. And what has happened to our planet, it's a little different than usual, because at the scheduled times of ascension, we haven't made it in the past. There have been, as a whole planet. And there's a whole history behind that, why that happened, and due to interference with human progress by negative extraterrestrials was one major factor in that. But now, meaning right now, the years that we're living in right now, is this period that is set for ascension of our planet. And a lot of people are aware of this, or becoming aware of this understanding, and are asking about and are trying to do what they can to help. And that's really what I'm doing also. I'm doing what I can to spread this knowledge, because the first step is to have knowledge and have understanding that we are now in the midst of this period where we have to come to a higher level of awareness, or a deeper level of awareness, of consciousness, which the most fundamental feature, you might say, is becoming service to others oriented rather than service to self. So this is what's required. Instead of being self-centered, instead of just thinking about and worrying about ourselves, maybe our family, we have to think about the welfare of others and serve all of humanity, and in fact serve the entirety of creation and serving God. So that's what we have to achieve, and it really means just being kind, loving, thoughtful, acting truthfully. So these principles, what are pretty universal, all religious systems teach these universal principles, so we have to actually implement those in our society, in our individual lives, in our communities, in our nations, and on our planet, in order to achieve this ascension, or this. So we had a wonderful, wonderful discussion about many topics. Just trying to think. I think I've covered the main the main things that were very interesting to me yesterday. Let me just pause for a minute and recollect if there's anything else that we should talk about right now that would be interesting to you all also. Um, anyway, let me see what time it is first. Oops. So we have plenty of time. Well, let me just see what questions there may be coming up here before I go on. There are a number of comments and questions. When will I come to France? Etc. So I'm not going to discuss questions like that now. So Ranja Sahib has said, what is your suggestions about USA presidential election? Who is going to elect by nation? This also is not really, I don't really want to talk about US politics much in this class, but because it does relate to exopolitics, and in fact, Michael and I and other people were also discussing, naturally it comes up all the time these days because the presidential election is only a few weeks away, and there are a lot of interesting questions about this election. But basically, it appears extraterrestrials are definitely involved in American politics also, and some people feel they are promoting Hillary Clinton because she is quite involved with extraterrestrials. And she, in fact, has been talking about disclosure, like she is going to bring out the files, the secret files. But the conclusion of the discussion was that she's not really going to do that. She is in a group of people, cabal, Illuminati, who want to promote partial disclosure, not full disclosure. So what people like Corey Good and Michael Salla and myself and others are promoting is that there must be full disclosure. In fact, he said just yesterday morning he posted on his website a new article which talks about John Podesta, I think specifically, who is Hillary Clinton's advisor in her campaigning and has been involved with the Clintons for many years. And he seems to be a pretty good man because he's wanting to reveal truth about extraterrestrials, or at least about UFOs. But Michael's conclusion was that what Hillary Clinton is doing and John Podesta is doing is promoting a partial disclosure, not really a full disclosure, but just they want people to find out that there are UFOs, there are these anti-gravity craft, but they don't want people to know the whole story of what extraterrestrials are doing and have been doing, interacting with humanity. And they especially don't want the crimes of the ruling elite of this planet, both human and extraterrestrial, to be revealed because they're part of it. So as far as I've said before, I'm not going to vote for either Hillary Clinton or Donald Trump, although everyone's saying, no, you have to vote for one. If you don't vote for one of them too, your vote is useless because nobody else is going to win. That's the American political system where both political parties, Republican and Democrat, have been controlled by the same people, the same cabal. So it doesn't really matter who you vote for. So for most of my life, I never voted in presidential elections because I didn't see any difference between one party and the other. But in this election, I'm going to vote not for Republicans or Democrats, but I am going to vote. I'm going to vote for Andrew Basiago, who is running as an independent candidate. And in, I think, about 44 states in America, each state has separate rules about independent candidates. So I think there are 40 some of the 50 states in the United States which allow independent candidates to run, and so he is running, so he's allowed to be, I can vote for him in California. So I hope you will consider, of course, most of you maybe not American citizens, so you're not going to be voting in this election, but still, Andy 2016 is his website, ANDY 2016. I think he has .org, .com, .net, but he is the presidential candidate that I'm going to vote for. The others I am not going to put any trust in. I'll try to speak in Urdu also. ये बारंबार ये पूछा जाता है, मैं बताता हूँ कि मैं हर शनिचर को, हर सैटरडे को मैं क्लास उर्दू में ही लेता हूँ, लेकिन अन्य तो ये क्लास अंग्रेजी में होता है क्योंकि लोग भी हैं जिनको उर्दू नहीं आती है. Sir, what is Illuminati? Yes, good question. The Illuminati, they call themselves Illuminati, meaning illumined or intelligent, aware, but they are not really illuminated. They think they are. But they are a group of people, I call them the cabal, which is the word that many people using now. It's a group of people who comprise or include bankers, the big international bankers, the big banking families like the Rothschilds and the Rockefellers are prominent in the Illuminati, and big energy companies, oil companies, and they actually control this planet for the most part. Most of the governments in the world are under their control, and many countries they cannot, for example, especially they're concerned about finance and about banking, so no country can independently choose its own finance minister. It has to be approved by the World Bank or by the representatives of the cabal. The World Bank is also a cabal institution, as many international institutions are. The world is controlled mostly by these people. The United Nations also really was their creation, although there are good people in the United Nations who are doing some good work, but we see the United Nations is not establishing world peace like what it was meant for, because the real controllers of the United Nations don't want world peace. It was just a show to promote their agenda of creating one world government, which they want really to be a dictatorship under their control. And behind the Illuminati, behind the human Illuminati, which includes a variety of factions, there are extraterrestrials, particularly the reptilians. The Draco Federation is involved with the Illuminati. And the secret space programs are also, especially the Dark Fleet, the Nazi German fleet, is definitely controlled by the Illuminati, as is the interplanetary corporate conglomerate, which runs this big, huge colony on Mars, which mostly utilizes slave labor. It's a very dark organization, the Illuminati, and they actually are Satan worshippers. They engage in all sorts of dark rituals, and I think that's enough about them. But fortunately, their day is over. They are struggling now to maintain their program. Their plan was by the year 2000 they would have their government, world government in place that they were controlling with a world police force so that nobody could oppose them. But that program failed, and now their whole plan is falling apart. In fact, they're on the run now. Just the last year or two, they've been trying to escape, and they're moving their assets, and they're moving their families to their secret areas in South America or Antarctica. And recently some of them tried to escape the planet, and they have large teardrop-shaped craft, and they were confronted by some smaller chevron-shaped, triangle-shaped craft, which no one had seen before. Neither they had seen before nor anybody else, which evidently was given to some Earth-based groups by the Sphere Being Alliance or by some other highly advanced groups. So now the Illuminati, the cabal, is on the defensive. They have been, in power and increasing their power and control for thousands of years, really. Certainly the last few centuries, we know about the Illuminati increasing their control over all the governments and financial institutions, educational institutions of the world, political institutions, of course, and now in this last few years, they've lost their offensive, and they're on the defensive now. And it won't be long before they'll all be exposed, and that's what the full disclosure is going to include. So let's see, anything else relevant? More requests to speak in Urdu. Deepak Chopra, Indian American author, has similar thoughts too. I didn't know that Deepak Chopra talks about extraterrestrials, but he does have a lot of similar ideas about the importance of meditation, and he was a medical doctor, and he discovered how the health of the body is so intimately related with the mental condition, and so he prescribed meditation and has become very famous. Probably most of you have heard about him. So what is the topic? The topic really is my meeting yesterday with Michael Salla, and that's what I've been discussing, but I'm just answering questions right now, whatever topic may be, if it's related to UFOs. Hassan Mahmoud, the Indus civilizations of Harappa and Mohenjo-Daro are also a big mystery, since no one can find what really happened to the people there. There are no skeletons or any form of human remains there. This is very interesting. Actually, when I was studying at the University of California, before I got my PhD, in my master's studies, one of my areas of study was the Indus civilization. And there has been a lot of controversy, certainly, about what happened to that civilization. Did it get destroyed by the invading Aryans? That was Sir Mortimer Wheeler's theory. He was the leading archaeologist in India and in Pakistan after Pakistan was formed in the mid-20th century. And then my professor, George Dales, became the leading archaeologist of the Indus Valley civilization, and he pretty convincingly proved that Mortimer Wheeler's theory was wrong. The Indus Valley civilization was not destroyed by an invading force like that. And there are theories also that Mohenjo-Daro has traces of radioactivity and some sort of nuclear weapons were used, that there was really some sort of war, but the modern academic historians and anthropologists do not really know. Was it just a change in weather? That's another theory. So there are some skeletons, especially they have been found in Mohenjo-Daro at a higher level, not on the deeper level, which means that after the city had been mostly abandoned, there were still people living there, and some of them had been killed in a raid by somebody, and their skeletons are there in the roadways. They had just evidently been fleeing and were killed. So yes, but there is definitely some mystery, a lot of mystery about the Indus civilization. Now, whether they did something like what the Mayan civilization did, where they suddenly all ascended to a higher level of a consciousness and thereby moved into a different timeline, sort of disappearing from this, that's an idea that I'm still getting adjusted to. I'm not very familiar with that idea that Michael Salla was telling me about, which I'd not heard before. The whole Mayan civilization in Central and South America disappeared like that. So we have a question here. Tajamul Hussein Shah, I heard you many times talking about Pakistan. Can I know the reason why you like and discuss Pakistan and Pakistani people? Well, I was a resident of Pakistan myself from 1947 till 1965. My parents were working there. And for that reason, of course, I have an interest in Pakistan. It's my home, really. And that's why I speak Urdu fluently. But the main reason is, and I've explained this a number of times also, in about 1983, 82, 83, 84, I was living in Pakistan, and I met a number of Sufis and spiritual personalities who told me at that time, this is a long time ago, that Pakistan is a special place and that I should create an organization called Pak Rasta. That name was given to me, and I didn't understand at all what I was supposed to do, and it was only, 1 or 2 years ago that I started understanding what all this meant that I had been told so long ago. And it is, very briefly, that Pakistan is the place that has been selected by extraterrestrials or by God or by whatever, where people will come together in peace, in truth, in justice, and establish love as the basis of society, unity, in harmony, which is shocking for many people. Pakistan, which people think is the center of terrorism, like that. But no. If Pakistan is very corrupt, and it is, of course, the government is at least, and other institutions like the police are very corrupt. But if that's the case, then we can see that throughout human history, when something wonderful happens, it also often happens in a place which seems to be the opposite of that what is newly happening. Just like the Holy Prophet Muhammad, peace be on him, appeared in Arabia, which was one of the most ignorant, perhaps the most ignorant place in the world, and he brought a whole new light and knowledge there in Arabia. So Pakistan is the Medina Sani, the second Medina, the new Medina. That's my belief, at least, and so that's why I'm interested in Pakistan, why I'm always thinking about Pakistan, and that's why I'm teaching this class, mostly to Pakistanis. All right. So, in Quran there is mentioned an incident happened with Uzair, where there were 3 different timelines in a limited space. 100 years passed on donkey, a few hours on Uzair, and a few seconds on his meals. So that's good. I wasn't really familiar with this, but yes, there are different timelines that can have a variety of meanings. One meaning is that in different places time travels at different speeds. Things happen much more quickly in some areas than in different areas, different planets or different parts of the galaxy. So if you go to some other place where the time is passing more quickly, then a lot of things happen and you come back and hardly anything has happened here. And the reverse also happens, that if you go somewhere else where the time is going more slowly and you're there for only a few days, you come back and hundreds of years have passed. So that's one way in which there are different timelines. But what I'm talking about, different timelines, is that on the same time schedule, you might say, where time is passing at the same rate and on the same planet, even in the same place, when it especially happens when people travel back in time and they try to change history because something has happened in history that wasn't very favorable, or wasn't very favorable for them at least, so they decide to change what happened. They go back in time and they create something different. They make something else happen, and that creates, it doesn't really change history, as I was saying earlier today, but it creates a new timeline, another alternate history. So that's the main thing that the different timelines means, that these are factual, they are physically real, different timelines, and it's possible to jump from one timeline to another. And evidently what the Mayans did is they jumped to another, more positive timeline, so they disappeared from this timeline. So Sayyid Muhammad Irtiza Wahidi is asking, where is this written that Pakistan is a selected place? What made you think that? There are a lot of places where it's written by different Sufis have talked about it, and maybe I'll repost it. I've written something on Facebook, but then it goes, Facebook goes down, so maybe I'll post it again today back up on top of my page so you can read it. I posted about over a year ago something about Pakistan, in which I talk in detail about different statements made by different Sufis about Pakistan. And even, as I mentioned just recently, last week I think, the Holy Prophet himself, peace be upon him, he made a statement about Pakistan, believe it or not. Of course the name Pakistan wasn't there, but he made a famous statement, not famous enough, but it's getting well known, that I am Arabian, but Arabia is not in me, or is not in my heart. I am not from Hind, but Hind is in me, or Hind is in my heart. So he also is always thinking about, what is Hind? Pakistan. Hind doesn't mean India. Hind means the land along the Indus River. So the Holy Prophet, peace be on him, also thought that Pakistan was a special place, because he was always thinking about it. He said, it is in me, it's in my heart. And how many Sufis should I mention right now? I don't know, but I'll post that article, which talks about a number of different Sufis who have predicted about what will happen in the future. Hundreds of years ago, they predicted about this part of the world, which we now know as Pakistan. So let me just check the time. I think our time may be up. Well, we can go on for a few more minutes, maybe. Of course, what made me think this about Pakistan originally was these contacts I had back in the early 1980s, where not just one, but several very special, unique, mystical, wonderful experiences happened to me. And I was given some information that indicated things that I didn't understand at all. And the significant one here was that message about Pak Rasta, which I'm still struggling to understand what I should do about it, what it means, but it definitely, this much it means that Pakistan is a special place where I should do what I can, and I should encourage others to do what they can to establish what I was told was pure Islam. In fact, I will quote that since somebody wanted me to speak in Urdu. I can quote my Punjabi thing that I heard and I memorized because it was so beautiful. Pakistan da matlab hai, O Pakistan, jithe Hazuri Pak, ude Pak Musahib de naal, Islami Pak phir qaim kar denge. That about 1983, I can't remember the exact year right now, but it was in the town of Ghorki in northern Sindh, and I was there, and early one morning or late one night, about 3:30 or so in the morning, I felt this person coming to me and telling me this. So that's why I think Pakistan is special, because I was told Pakistan is a place where pure Islam is going to be reestablished. And I didn't know what pure Islam meant at all, but then just last year, was it? Yes, only last year when I was in Lahore, about a year and a half ago, I think it was in May of 2015, I heard a voice speaking. Nobody else who was around me heard it, but at that time I was not alone. I was in a company. I was in fact sitting in a restaurant with a number of friends and some leading religious personalities of Lahore. And I heard, again in Punjabi, Islami Pak da matlab ki, Shariat ya Muhabbat. Islami Pak da matlab ki. This Islami Pak that is supposed to be re-established in Pakistan, what does it mean? Islami Pak da matlab ki, Shariat ya Muhabbat. The law or love. Because many people think Islam means Shariat. But what is the answer to that question? What is pure Islam? Is it the Sharia or is it love? The answer is also very interesting in the form of another question. Insani Pak da matlab ki, Jisme Khakh ya Ruhi Pak. So that's actually very, very deep. It takes a lot of thought, a lot of reflection to understand what that means. But one thing that's very clear, the soul is obviously more important. If you don't know Urdu or Punjabi, that answer is, what is the pure human being? The body of dust or the pure soul? So of course we are both body and soul, but the soul is more important than the body. The body without the soul is just a corpse. So what that means is really what this Pak Islam that's going to be established in Pakistan is really mainly about love. It's about establishing affection, kindness, forgiveness. So that's the real meaning of pure Islam. And many people are trying to promote Sharia law. Okay, that's nothing wrong with that, but that's only the external body. And without establishing and promoting love and truth and justice and harmony and progress and concern for especially the weaker classes, the poor people, that was prominent in the Holy Prophet's, peace be upon him, his life. He was always concerned about the poor people and the weaker people and protecting them. So that has to be a priority of Pakistanis. So I think that's enough for our class for today. And tomorrow I hope we'll get back to the topic that we were discussing yesterday, which is a little more about the structure of reality. And I hope, inshallah, we can talk about that tomorrow. Okay. Goodbye. Hope to see you tomorrow. And may God protect us all.